Hi, everyone. Um, a very warm welcome to all of you from E-Gaming Federation. Thank you for joining this webinar, taking out your prestigious time and being here today with us. We will start in about a couple of...
Thank you for joining us. We are waiting for another 2-3 minutes for other participants to join, and we'll start soon. Thank you for your patience.
Vibhuti, uh, Vibhuti, are you aware that FICCI is collecting the data or asking for the data? Who are the top 20 gaming players and what is the level of business? But why MIB is asking this data? Be very careful on that. Right?
Sure, ma'am. I've also received that request from Fiki,
Right.
and
I immediately send them regrets. I don't deal with this. I deal only on issues and policies. Don't ask me. So be very careful on that because uh, the new digital act, the OTT principles, and what they are doing, you have to be extremely careful and read between the lines.
I'll do that, ma'am. Thank you for the heads up.
Should we get started, guys? People will join when they join. I think we have enough of a quorum to get going. By the way, Arunaji, thank you so much for the input. That's been our view as well internally.
Yeah, so careful. You do all this data collection, what is and anyway, what is in public domain, they should do a little hard work and
We are just waiting for another minute and then we can start.
I think Niharika, let's get started. I think we waited long enough. Um, let's just get the ball rolling because it's an important topic, and I want to make sure we have enough time to cover.
Sure. Uh, so, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for a webinar titled Gambling Away India's Sovereignty, hosted by the E-Gaming Federation in collaboration with All India Gaming Federation. My name is Niharika, and we are excited to have you all here to delve deep into the significant impact of illegal online gambling on India's national security and data integrity. Now, before we begin, a few housekeeping rules. One, this webinar will last approximately 60 minutes, including a Q&A session at the end. Second, I request all of you to keep your mics on mute and submit your questions in the Q&A section below. We will address them as and when we start with the Q&A session. Third and last, a recording of this webinar will be available afterward for those who wish to revisit the discussion. So now I would like to thank the special invitee, Aruna Sharma ma'am, who is a renowned development economist. It's a pleasure to have you here, ma'am. Thank you for joining us. Now, to set the stage for today's discussion, I would like to invite Anuraag Saxena, who is the CEO of the E-Gaming Federation, to give us an overview on the subject.
Thank you so much, Niharika. Thank you, Arunaji, for taking out your time. Thank you, everybody else who's joined us, from the industry, from federations, from NGOs, from all over the place to be here. The star of today evening is Vinit ji, so I don't want to steal away any limelight from him. But as they say, mauka bhi hai, dastur bhi hai. I'm supposed to make some opening comments and welcome him. So let me just start with why I'm really delighted that we're doing this today. Three reasons, right? First, I think it's very interesting to see the whole industry come together across federations, across gaming companies, across formats, and so on and so forth. So I'm really very glad that everybody is here together. Second is, as I always say, all of us are proud Indians first. We are gamers later, we are government servants later, we're, anything else after that. And it's very encouraging for us. Something that, so there's a lot that we find in the white paper today that across the industry we've been saying for the longest time, that you need to encourage a legitimate industry as an alternative to the illegitimate industry, which is pretty much unregulatable. And we've always seen it as a tax pilferage issue. We've always seen it as a lack of consumer redressal issue. But for me, I was very excited to see the white paper, which actually talked about the national security implications, which we should be worried about way more than consumer protection, tax pilferage, and things like that. I was really delighted to read the white paper, and on every reading, I found something new. So would like to thank CKS for actually doing this. Last but not the least, I'm really delighted that Vinit ji is here. Um, I've known him for the longest time. I found him very insightful and balanced. I always defer to sage advice on many issues, both personal and professional. And I'm hoping all of us can benefit from the work they have done, which is out in the public domain for us to read. But more importantly, कि अब विनीत जी हमारे पकड़ में आए हैं, so I want all of us to be able to benefit from the one-on-one interaction with him, and his inputs on how we engage with the government, with media, with the society at large, etc., and how we, as the industry, can actually become partners in the progress, the protection, and the preservation of the sovereignty of Bharat. So, Vinit ji, welcome. Thank you so much for taking out the time to be here. Over to you, Vinit ji. You have 20-25 minutes, after which my friend Roland will come in with a vote of thanks, and then we open up to questions. People will type it, and then we'll have team members from EGF and AIGF who will moderate those questions. Over to you, Vinit ji. Please take over the floor. We are all ears. And for the third time, I can't thank you enough for being here.
So,
Thank you.
Vinit ji, before you start, I would like to first thank you, Anuraag, for setting the context. Now, we will now move on to the presentation, which will shed light on the growing concerns surrounding the increasing presence of foreign companies in the space of gaming, gambling, and betting in the country. Now, I would like to welcome Shri Vinit Goenka ji, who is the Secretary, Center for Knowledge Sovereignty. He's also an author, and he has again also served in various councils in the government of India, including Ministry of Railways, Member Task Force for IT Ministry of Shipping, Roads and Highways. Vinit ji is a technocrat, an educationist, and a visionary who is well accomplished in the matters to do with policy. Sir, we are delighted to have you here. Now, the floor is all yours. We request you to discuss the white paper released by CKS.
Thank you. Thank you, Devati ji. Anuraag ji, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. I learn a lot whenever I talk to you. And thank you both, EGF and also AIGF. I see a lot of faces from whom I have learned about this gaming. So it's very difficult to put my points in front of you, but I'll try my best to do that. And I'm really delighted to meet you all, especially the people from the gaming industry. One thing which I always thought, who is the victim? I used to think that, the victim is the player, victim is the family. And then my interaction and understanding with you all, I realized that probably the industry is the victim of the narration which has been set here. And I thought we should do something, and we will go about this particular part. I'm sure you all know about CKS, yet I'll just take couple of seconds to let you know about CKS. CKS was formed over a decade back by Lieutenant General D.B. Shekatkar. Dr. Shekatkar is known, Lieutenant General Dr. Shekatkar is known for the famous Shekatkar Committee. And also, we have been focusing on something which is little unique, the national security, from the point of view of non-kinetic warfare. Now, what is non-kinetic warfare? Where you don't use the weapons, what you traditionally see, the conventional weapons, but these are the weapons which you may not see. And they are digital weapons, the data sovereignty part. I've been fortunate, I could author a book called as Data Sovereignty, The Pursuit of Supremacy, along with best of the journals, General Shekatkar, General Khandare, General Bhatia, and General Patil. One of our co-author was Additional Secretary, Cabinet Secretary, Jaydev Ranade. We were also given the cover page by the former ISRO chairman, Yes, Karan Kumar. So that set the ball rolling. And if you want to know more about CKS, I would request you to visit cksindia.org, the work which we do in geospatial and the data space. But then what happened, in the last 2-3 years, especially post-COVID. There was a narration, there was a discussion which was happening. Kids were holding up in the house. They were on the mobile, they were on the gadgets, they were playing. And then, a discussion happened. What is this? What is gaming or gambling or sports? And there was a confusion. And so thought that post-COVID, we should understand about this particular part. And what we understood is a very simple thing, is that it's an illegal gambling, which is actually underestimated, problem, or you can say the offenders, which has not been discussed about that, and somebody should discuss about this. Second problem which I understood is there is a mix-up. There is a mix-up in two things. People have really mixed up something called as gambling, esports, gaming, and that has to be cleared. So we thought about this. What do we do? Do we do it into this? Do we dwell into this particular part? We have been a national security champions. We were talking about non-kinetic warfare. This is come under us. And then in the last 1 year, we thought this is the place where we have to be there. Couple of reasons. One reason was we thought because this is a business which will impact the entire country, the youths. It's billions of dollars worth business, and of course there are players coming from within the country, from outside, from grey land, state-sponsored, non-state actors. Everybody was there. So how do we go about? And I would like to share with you the process which we follow in the CKS. Whenever there is something called as CKS, I think we study that subject first. And how do we study it? And which we call this actually black box reading. So we go back to our library, we start reading what is written over the internet, in the newspapers, in the journals. We read about this. We took a couple of weeks about this particular part. Then we thought we should do something called as whitelisting listening. And in the listening part, this is a unique way CKS does a learning. And I'm sure you will appreciate that. We call industry experts, we call various stakeholders, and 3 or 4 key leadership of Center for Knowledge Sovereignty. They sit down there without speaking a single word, with pen and the paper, and we take down the notes. And on 23rd April 2024, in the Constitutional Club, we invited 18 of those experts whom we thought. They were from various segments. They represented various segments. My role, Lieutenant General Khandare's role, or Jaydev Ranade, the former cabinet, additional secretary, cabinet secretary. So role was to listen and take down the notes. So was the role of all the researchers in there. Then a couple of names were really excited. So what we did is, we had these 2 security experts. We had 2 journalists, Rishabh Gulati from NewsX, young journalist Mridul Sharma coming from Republican. So to understand what are the views from their side, we had a mental health specialist, especially who flew from Mumbai, Vedika Rajiv Bodar. She runs a very big initiative on the mental health. Then we had 2 professors, a professor from Jamia Millia, who was Dean Faculty of Social Sciences, and somebody else also joined us. We had lawyers. We had a representative who was former NSCS, Advocate Sunil Agarwal, who joined us. We had 2 MDs who employ more than 1,000 people. So then does this impact their company? Does this impact their HR there? So we had Agendra Kumar, Managing Director of SRE. We had Mudit Goel, who runs a paper mill. So this kind of forces. Then we had a lot of people. I can go on about this name, but what they essentially did is, in the 3-hour session of that round table, they educated 3 of us, myself, General Khandare, and Ranade sir, what they feel, what is their concern, what is their inputs for us, and that helped us to formalize certain things. And then we decided that this vertical within CKS will be led by Jaydev Ranade, and it will be chaired by Lieutenant General Khandare. So that was the process which we formed. And if I get a chance to speak about the white paper, which also I would invite you all to visit our website, cksindia.org, to read the paper in detail. We have put it in the public domain. It's a free paper. Anybody can actually pick it up, use this, and we'll be more than happy to receive your inputs on that particular part. One paragraph I'd like to lead it for you, and that probably makes my concern very well, is that the illegal betting market in India is estimated to receive deposits worth 100 billion annually. And the growth which has been projected is more than 30-35%, which will go up. Somewhere else I had read that, the business market is more than 300 billion for the gamers itself. And I think one of the leading consulting companies, BCG, also has written a paper on that, which should be read. When we were going through this, there are some data points which we thought we should put up in the white paper. And this white paper is after our listening to the people, after our completion of the listening around which we did is, what we were concerned about the national security threat which is coming out of this. So the foremost thing is that I myself was not aware between the distinction of this three particular part, which is gambling, esports, which is game of luck, or gaming, and I was trying to mix up. And I would not blame myself about this. And Anuragji, I would rather blame you and all the industry experts that you never bothered to tell us that there is a distinction between e-gaming, e-sports, or gambling. And I, as a father, always thought these three are all evils. So when you actually did this education, then only I came to know that there's a distinction, and we should talk about the real evil and not go behind the so-called perceived narration which has been built by other people. And what is the challenge which is there? Illegal betting sites which are especially coming from the foreign entities, territories and the geographies which are not so friendly to India, or not those territories which are not been governed properly, is a big challenge for our national security. And we all know that new wars will not be fought with weapons; they will be fought with data. What we have seen in even the conflict which is going on between Ukraine and Russia, digital assets are being used to harm each other. The digital weaponization has been done. The data has been weaponized there, and this data can be coming out from various sources. Now, there is also a challenge to the financial ecosystem, because there will be a compromise, suspicious transactions will happen. Those operators who come there can be used by money launderers, that may be used by agencies which are not so favorable to us. Of course, the white paper also talks about the data proliferation, data protection concerns which we have, because in this gaming industry there are kids which are involved, there are people, civilians, citizens who have to be protected. So who are the people who would be involved in that? And one thing which I came to know about is that the illegal gaming platforms often would get involved in data proliferation. Now, I'm assuming, and you may have to educate me, that legitimate gaming industry, gaming companies which originate from the country, whether they would like to do that. And my assumption is they won't like to do that. But this education has to be done, kind of thing. There has to be one discussion which we wrote in the white paper also, is the consumer protection issue. When these consumers are there, these players who are there, they are also consumers. So there is no guidelines, there is no specific awareness about this. Do we talk about that? 2-3 more points, and one of the important point is the cyber security and the cyber crimes which will happen on this. Will it lead to crimes and all? This has to be talked, and we talked about. One paragraph which I quoted, I would like to read that for you, and I would request you to once again that go and read the white paper, educate us, and also share that particular. The unchecked illegal gambling, which is happening, that is a threat to India's national security. The economic integrity of the country is also challenged by those illegal entities which are operating under the garb of gaming or esports. So that it is to be taken care of. It is imperative that we all proactively take measures where we request, advocate, push, and also engage with various bodies which can help government to formulate rules, regulations. Now, what is typically happening is, I'm assuming that you engage with politicians who are executives, and you may be also engaging with bureaucrats who are secretaries and deputy secretaries. But a government is beyond that. Government is also a view of the people, and this is not necessarily inside the secretariat. So I think, Anuraagji, if I can take a liberty, your organization should take some steps where you engage the civil society and help correct the narration which is going on particular part. I also in the paper talked about advocating for collaborative efforts between all the agencies of government, then the institutions, especially the financial institutions or the tech providers. Whether the tech providers are sincere, what would they do it? And also we should address the challenges which we all face, especially from the illegal gambling industry, which is operating under the garb of gambling. That has to be exposed. And what are the approach? So we thought about there should be 3-pronged approach which we are talking in the white paper. One is to understand the threat landscape. Now, the challenge with the agencies or the people who take policy decisions is that they are not understanding the threat landscape. Let me be very candid and honest with you. 2 years back, even I was presuming many things which over the period when I read about this, when I engaged with the industry, I came to know that my perceptions were wrong. So if this happens with me, I'm sure the typical politician sitting in the decision-making box may not be having that, and that the duty lies on you particular part. Anuraagji, one more part which we did not discuss, but we should discuss is the human behavior. Recognize that it is an intrinsic human propensity to engage games, and especially those games which involves money. So Do we propose an absolute ban on all the games? And and then create a mess, because that mess will push illicit things. So we have to be very balanced, and we have to educate the decision makers, the policy maker, that taking these kind of drastic steps mean rather harm. We should educate them that we should propose and promote legitimate gaming, and also take measures which will avoid gambling and harming the society. So this particular part, to put in mechanisms, whether they are control mechanisms, whether they are regulation mechanisms, measures of enforcement, that has to be discussed. And this we have discussed in the white paper which are there. So that's this I thought I should share with you. It's already almost around 15 minutes I've been speaking. Anuraag, do I have 2-3 minutes more? I can engage.
Yes, please, by all means, sir.
So what I understand, within the society and the government, the view of gaming industry is more or less framed with the moral discussion. So when, I come back home, I talk to my parents, or, I talk to my kid, it's about moral this thing. Band kar dijiye, karna chahiye, ye to acha nahi hota. But there has to be some rational discussion, which includes a point which is called as national security. You cannot discuss today a digital platform where the engagements do not confine within the rooms. It's not a real cricket where there is a stadium, where there is a bat, ball, players, and you play in that. This one involves a lot of things beyond what civilians will understand, what a common student will understand. So when you discuss, it should not be only moral, but it should be a rational discussion, and it should essentially involve the national security angle. Otherwise, we will all miss. And maybe over the period, we will be colonized by those parties, those involved, those agencies which want to do that. Should we discuss this only in this kind of seminars? Should we engage only by going to the tables of the bureaucrats? I think this discussion has to go in a larger space, whether it can be in the schools, it can be creating of awareness within the society, but it should be done. And one more thing, I think, organizations like both yours, whether it is EGF or whether it is AIGF, the economic impact has to be talked about. How much jobs this is in creating, how much investment this is creating, the ecosystem which has been created there, and the technological advancement. See, when they nuked Japan, they talked about the ills of the nuclear weapon. But there was somebody intelligent there who used the same isotope to cure cancer. So, if your association can talk about the goods which can be created, that, you're pushing the ability of the youth to engage, create, cultural tie-ups, that predominantly that younger demography which is there should get into this, because they should learn, they will be agile, their minds will be challenged, and this will create. Can we also see to an angle where there can be a cultural integration? When I play games, sitting here, I may come from an X class, I can come from a Y language speaking geography, or my upbringing, maybe anything, but there can be an integration, and can Indian themes and narratives in the games can be pushed, and that can create, a rich heritage. We can create it on the international platform, create a market for our assets which we have here. Of course, we have to talk about, personal data protection. We also have to talk about the compliances which are there. And I really don't know which are the compliances, because when I asked one of my researchers that, can you tell me the list of compliances, and he gave me this many pages. Now, if I keep reading this many compliances, I won't allow my son to go on this. So somebody has to simplify this for us. The engagement has to happen. One part which, Anuraag, you can do it, and I'm sure, as I know you for over the period, the capabilities you have and the way you have turned bad tables into good tables, is that, can you engage your CEOs? And why am I taking your name? Because I trust the abilities which I've seen within you for last decade, is to engage the CEOs to create that fair market practice. If your members, if they engage into non-fair market practices, then the entire industry will suffer. So I don't know whether government will think about something like that, but you can probably do this. Can we also discuss about content regulations? Also try to push the local content so that, we as a country benefit out of that when we go out. Of course, the debates on skill, chances, all that goes on, and that confuses people. Can we simply make that as simple as possible? And there are two last points which, Anuraag, why I'm taking your name, because, out of all the people here, of course, everybody knows Arunaji, Devbhuti ji, but you are, I think, one capable person who can actually talk about and clear the market about the confusion which is there about gaming, gambling. Uh, it is not the fault of the player. It is not fault of the parents. It is not fault of the teachers who confuse, or it is not fault of people like me who are in the policy space. If I can take a liberty and say, Anuraag, it is your problem. You have never told us. I can give you examples of industry bodies which educated not only the industry, took the industry along with them. We can learn from national model where they educated the industry, help the bureaucrats, help the decision maker, engage with them at various levels, not only going to the tables of the joint secretaries and trying to push their agenda. They never use this word that ki humne tax bhar diya, hamara kya, ab aap dekh lo. They got into real engagement. So this is probably simple. One more concern as a think tank, which I would say, is that you are not doing enough to separate yourself from those illegal gaming industry, and especially those companies which are into gaming space but coming from geographies which are not known to us. Because the other day I was talking to two, three serious players in the decision-making circle. I told them, and that, sir, if these are Indian companies, the CEOs are here, their servers are here, their balance sheets are here, you can actually go and catch them. But if those guys come from a gray area, they come from entities not known to us, geographies where we cannot lay our hand, they will become a serious threat. So probably you may have to lead and tell us what can be done. Well, one or twice tactical engagement, talking off the record is all good. But then you'll have to give a long-term engagement where not only creating push inside the secretariat, inside the political offices, was also engaging those influencers which can carve out a good space for this particular industry can be done. Anuraag, it's very tempting to talk to this audience when you read this name, especially those people who are leading names in the industry. I can go on and go on, but I think I should stop here right now. And if there are any specific questions, I'll try my best to answer. Not that I'm an expert, but I can always give a shot. If I don't have an answer, give me a liberty where I can go back to my think tank, ask my experts to collect information, and we can then come out to answer you. So that liberty I'll take. If I'm not in a position to answer, I'll always come back to you.
Thank you, Shri Goenka, for that comprehensive analysis and detailed overview of the current landscape and the profound implications of illegal gambling and betting in the country. I would now like to invite Roland Landers, who is the CEO at All India Gaming Federation, for the closing remarks. After this, we will open the floor for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good to be here and to listen to that insightful inputs that Mr. Goenka gave. I would like to qualify, though, that since the inception of AIGF, we have been at the bureaucracy level and the political level. We've been, this has been one of my personal challenges to take on the offshore illegal gambling industry, and I have educated them to a great degree, so that so much so that at the taxation front, these guys are supposed to register now for at the GST level. They have not done it. That's a separate thing. But from the PMO downwards to MeitY, where blocking has happened, and the clear distinction between the Indian registered companies and what constitutes illegal offshore gambling. Even the consumer affairs, Anuraag also was there with me, and educate them on telling the celebrities not to advertise because they put the blame on their managers. So various ministries, right from the PMO downwards, have been educated. But one area which I agree with you, which we've not done maybe done a lot, is on the consumer side, because whatever the media writes about it, and the work that we've done, that may be reaching to certain audiences, but taking it, as you suggested, to the general people also, so that the distinction is made, I think is important, and that's an area that we can work together. So thank you so much, Mr. Goenka, and also thank you, Lieutenant General Vinod Khandare, who along with you have put together this white paper, which I thought was very elaborate and really points out what we've been also saying. that this distinction between gaming and gambling and esports is real, it exists, and that what are the harms that come from these companies that promote their services here and also take out billions of dollars year on year without paying any taxes. And the national security issue that you brought about is really imminent. And collectively, I'm happy to also collaborate with EGF on this matter, because it's a industry-wide issue, and I'm glad that the work that we've been doing now, company, policy firms like yourselves, CKS and others are joining hands so that we can collectively work towards nation building and protecting data. And as you rightly said in the report, I think one of the key takeaways, a couple of them, which I'll just like to reiterate. One is obviously that humans want to play. Gaming is the biggest pastime, so people are going to play. And out of all the engagement avenues within media entertainment, I think gaming clearly stands out as being the number one destination. So people will play, but is an outright ban the solution? Definitely not, as you also reiterated. The second thing is, this whitelist is very important. So we've been telling the METI that, you come out with the rules, you're the nodal ministry, you come out with a process to regulate it. So, push forward the SRB, the model that you've suggested as per the rules. And then, then we can have a whitelist that everybody follows. It becomes easier for everyone, whether it is media. I see some questions there that, this advertising is happening. To a large degree, it has stopped during the IPL also. But one area where they are still advertising is the outdoors, which is not really, regulated. It's more in the gray. So that I think, I'm sure that, going forward with all our collective efforts, it will also stop. But yeah, so that is the second thing. So the whitelist is very important, which can then be followed by everyone. The third thing is, the national security issue, which I'm sure that, when we put our heads together and collaborate on this, we will try and suggest models which can mitigate this. I also want to restate that we'll take this the white paper and all our collective efforts to the general people in a larger way, so that they are also well educated. And finally, I think that the this if METI really takes forward this, now that the elections are over and the ministries have been set in place, the people are there, I think we have to revisit that. And so if they are able to take this forward, clearly we'll have a whitelist that can solve a lot of problems. So there is an urgent need for all of us to coordinate, and I'm happy once again. Thank you, Mr. Goenka, and your team for putting this together. And I look forward to working together with EGF and with CKS on how we can really collaborate and strengthen our efforts to mitigate the risks that come from the offshore illegal gambling. Thanks everyone for participating. Thank you.
Thank you, Roland, for all your thoughts and sharing your ideas. We will now take some questions from the audience. So if you have any questions about the white paper, about the national security in the context of illegal betting and gambling, please type a question in the message box. Vinitji, who is one of the very few experts who has worked in the private as well as the government sector. We also have Aruna Sharma ma'am with us. So in case you have any questions regarding policy and government engagement as well, you can ask the same. I would also request Anuraag and Roland to pitch in wherever needed. So before we jump to the Q&A session, I would like to invite Devuti Bakshi, who is the Director Public Policy at EGF, and Soumya from the Legal and Policy team of All India Gaming Federation to take the Q&A session forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Niharika. So I have my colleague Soumya also here, and together we've compiled all of the questions that the audience has been asking through this webinar. Some of the questions are extremely on point and very relevant to this discussion. So let's get started. I'll take up the first one, and then Soumya, you please take up the next one. So let me take up this very interesting question from Udit. And Udit says, as humans, people will play games for money. But the government is the real culprit, introducing various taxes, motivating users to play on illegal gambling websites, etc. And there is another associated questions here that says, what are the overarching threats to national security that the agencies have noticed? And have you identified any non-state actors as threats? So Vinit, would you like to take up this question, saying what is the overarching threats to national security that these agencies in the white paper have noticed?
See, especially those agencies, those state players or non-state players who are fronting and pushing these games inside India would like to have a data from you. The games are played on the devices which are not manufactured here. Of course, each of you, than what I am aware, that gives them access to various data points, to the bank accounts also, where the transactions are happening, and also to the general environment. Data collected helps the person who wants to access this particular data to know about this subject or this particular participant mode and his family members. So I'm sure you all understand this person who is collecting the data can use it for his own ulterior motive. And one of the asks which has been there always by CKS is that the data should not go outside the boundaries of the country. So there should be sovereign data policy, which the data remains here, whether the player is playing for a company within this country or outside. So even if these companies who are playing outside should shift the data here. And the data should be easily available to the LEA if there is any kind of disputes or cyber crimes which are originating out of this particular part. Now, there was this question which Uditji also has mentioned about government is a real culprit introducing various taxes motivating user to play on illegal gambling website. Well, I'm not the right person to answer this particular part. Whereas, if you have identified these kind of things, you should bring it to the notice to us or anybody who can bring this in the notice of the relevant authorities. We would like to educate the authorities and also see that how we can disengage with this. Well, there's one question which has been already asked, which if I can take liberty, Devati, if you give me this permission, Arunaji asked that whether how do we stop foreign companies to come here, because our players also play there and their players also. Well, we are governed. She's highly qualified and she's the right person to answer which question which she has asked. But treaties, multinational treaties, multi-player treaties, all are governing us. At the same time, we can push a little bit. We can talk about residing here and playing. They can always have their grievance officers, their nodal officers. They can register here. We are an Indian entity, so that can be discussed. There are ways to be done. We need not discuss this in open forums.
In fact, I saw Aruna ma'am's hand up. So Aruna ma'am, would you like to say something here? I think I saw your hand.
Yeah, I'd like to first of all compliment Vinit, Mr. Vinit Goenka, Lieutenant General Dari. Have brought it very, very comprehensive paper calculating all issues in one place. And of course, thank organizing this seminar. The one thing which is coming up, which you have been saying, and which needs interest here, that where the government should stop, right? That is very important. You have seen that Tamil Nadu regulatory authorities, they are thinking a filter is fine, that there has to be a filter of how many hours you want to spend and how much money you want to spend. But who is to decide that filter? Player. It can't be the government who decides and puts a thing, and okay, you can't spend more than 50,000 rupees. It's for the individual. So provisioning of a filter regulator can make it mandatory. But what should be the filter is a question mark. Similarly, the mighty which is sitting on deciding these parameters, because India is the only country which distinguishes between gambling and gaming. Rest of the world, it's an open licensing. That you register, you get a license, you pay the taxes, and then all kinds of games are permitted. Here, the government has taken a little moral stand, and we have two acts: the Gambling Act governed by the state, and the Central Act, which will look at the game of skill. So that is also something which is very needed. And rightly said that we cannot make a sentence that we cannot allow foreign. You can make it mandatory for them to register in India, like we did for Amazon and Flipkart and everything. They all got registered in India, and the databases were put in India. But what is allowed in that is the analytics. No, our data policy also allows the aggregated data to be taken anywhere in the world for analysis. So analytics is allowed because that is where the whole business stands on. Whether it is the e-commerce platforms or whether it is gaming platform. So that is somewhere we look forward for you and General Kandare to tell us the fencing which will be needed so that the security is not at stake. There, I think you are the one who have that expertise. Sort of pinpoint so which the person can take care. I think I'll stop here.
You want me to comment on this, Aruna ma'am?
Please, please,
Individually?
please,
So,
please.
I don't have a perfect answer to what you said because what you put is coming from a very learned person. But one question always came to my mind. Cigarette smoking was always illegal and immoral, at least if not illegal. It was bad what I've been told. Do we have a policy of how many cigarettes to be smoked in a day? Say, I have not read. I'm trying to read this. Can a person smoke 5 cigarettes, 50 cigarettes? Who has decided that? There's nothing. I don't smoke, ma'am, because I have that choice, and I was fortunate. I never smoked a single cigarette in my life. But those friends who smoke, I asked them कि कितना अच्छा होता है. तो somebody said मैं तो दिन में 2 ही पीता हूँ बस. Somebody said मेरे को 2 पैकेट के बिना नहीं होता है. So I'm just trying to search all the policy papers कि कहीं लिखा है क्या 30 cigarettes in a day is good, the cigarette with filter is only good. So sometimes governments go overboard in saying that this many hours is good and this many hours are bad. People like you and me, we have to go back and tell if this has to be done, then this has to be done to all the evils. So whether it is cigarette, whether it is liquor, so all the evils have to have that particular part. So we don't, sometimes they go overboard. And I'm sure the reasons of trying to put too many clauses and clusters which will harass the entrepreneur, which will harass the industry, and what are the reasons for that. And I personally feel when you put too many clauses, it is dangerous for transparency. So if you ask me honestly, at the cost of being speaking in this kind of e-forum, too many clauses are not good. Or else we should all come as a society together and say कि कल से सिर्फ 3 cigarette पी सकेंगे, 2 pack के भरना कोई पिएगा. And I have never drank in my life. So, but I'm saying that those who drink, who have suffered. So one is this part. Second part is about how do we stop the foreign companies. So when I said we stop the foreign companies, I always meant, and if I'm misunderstood, then let me correct myself. Those who legitimately come here, follow our regulations, sign off and be here, and we have some neck to catch if something goes wrong. I will tell you one particular part, the social media giants, the big tech. I brought one case, I'm sure you know about, where we had caught the money being transferred from banned terrorist organization. We had to, my friends filed cases. Finally, it went to Supreme Court. And there are dates which are going on. And the person against whom the cases have been filed, she's hopping from one job to another job. 1.5 crore se 2 crore ka job, 2 crore se 3 crore ka job. So we cannot allow this kind of thing also. So there also we should push up. So while we should educate the government decision makers, don't decide 2 cigarette, 3 cigarette, 2 hours, 1 hour. Let that be conscious decision by the parents. Let there be conscious decision by the player. Same time, also be little stringent to the industry. So my home industry, my Indian entrepreneurs, they flourish. Ma'am, this is more than $100 billion. And I don't see money value which has been earned by the entrepreneur who is running the company. But think about those engagements, those people who are getting jobs because of this. I read somewhere, and I may be wrong, but I'm just saying generally I read somewhere that Pune as a city has more than 85,000 drivers. So the licenses which have gone up in Pune. So in 1991, the number of registered licenses for drivers, commercial drivers, was say few hundred, and which today, if you see, they are more than 85,000. I was on the task force of MORTH, Road Transport and Highway. So we had this data. Why did this 88,000 drivers, that to commercial drivers, registered in Pune city itself? There are no trucks there. This is because the software engineers who get job there, they use taxis. So, it is not about the direct employment by the gaming industry. It's about the ecosystem which is created. And then if you go to Pune, the number of tapris. Now, I don't have an alternate word to this. I'm sure you understand. Everybody understand. I'm not talking about hotels, restaurants. I'm not talking about the formal this thing. I'm talking about one old widow standing with rice and dal, serving outside that company. to these engineers. Now that employment is also to be counted, which is not formal, which is not been documented by any system. There is no GST which is levied to this old lady who is selling that. But this is come up because of the industry. So we, as policy influencers, should talk about the opportunities which is created for people who are not directly involved. That guy who is repairing the tire, there is the number of tire repair shops which have come up in Pune. So I'm sure we will all have to educate. Yeah, number of cigarettes तय मत करो तो वैसे number of hours मत तय करो. Companies को रोको थोड़ा सा बाहर वाले को. एक suggestion है, अगर आप मुझे permit करें, Anuraag ji and Roland, both of you can do it. We all are proud of our country. And can we put that tag of Make in India tag, game generated in India or run by India? So that can easily differentiate. And slowly we should educate our people that this is operated, run by Indian entity, a flag or something like that. I don't know what will be the legal this thing, but this engagement can be done. And we can talk to relevant decks of the ministries.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. This is Soumya. I'm with the All India Gaming Federation. Thank you for the report. It's a very, very comprehensive report. And I think it echoes so many of our concerns that we try to bring up. We will take your point that we should probably creating a lot more awareness amongst the general population. We may be a little more structured there, and that would help us. Given that we have a paucity of time, I will be clubbing a couple of the questions. I know the report actually details the multi-pronged approach that you've advocated, that you can't really go after one particular thing. You will have to regulate, and you'll also have to look at other aspects. So just on that, a few questions that we have are, what are the key steps that you think our regulators should be taking to curb this issue? And then alongside, what should be the industry's approach? And during the course of your research, did you find any other country who is facing similar issues and has handled it differently?
So let me answer your last question first. Multiple countries have faced this, and if you go through papers published by good think tanks of those papers, or you also see the documents, there are government documents which are available in the public domain. Multiple countries, especially the responsible democracies, and I'm not talking about those entities or those economies or those geographies where democracy is not there. So then then the policies are not relevant to us. So, but especially the grown-up democracies, each of them have this problem which we are facing right now. They are evolving. Of course, we were talking about and we've seen that how the states followed. So we read about the Nevada, New Jersey, Delaware, laws which were there before going for this white paper. And of course, the Delhi Fantasy Sport regulations which were there, so that was discussed amongst our team. We also talked about that ARGEL, ARGEL, which is the France regulatory body which is there. So every country is facing this particular point. But my suggestion to the person who has asked this is, why do we have to always follow other countries? We are all grown up. We can discuss and let us push the government to make those policies and regulations and come out with that kind of behavior which the world will follow us. That engagements can be done. अनुराग, आप तो पहले के रोल में आपने किया है, लोगों को पुश करके क्रिएट किया है बात. I'm sure with the leadership of Soumya, Roland, Vibhuti, and everybody else, and people like Arunaji, always tell us that we become red. See, let me tell you about CKS. Till 3 years back, it was not our subject. We were more concerned about Fauj, which if you see who are there with us on our regular engagement, Lieutenant General Girish Kulkarni, Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia, then we have IG BSF, we have somebody. But after COVID, we started studying this, and today, if you ask me, we are really interested to understand this industry and the behavior of the consumer in this industry. So, Anuraag, I have a suggestion in the interest of the time. If there are more questions, they can all come. If you are one of your team member, can collate them, send it to us. I promise that my think tank will answer each of them honestly.
I think you will enjoy a lot of our questions, sir. But maybe if you're just wrapping it up, as a last point, because there's also something you spoke extensively about, is in terms of advocacy, what advice do you have for us to engage with the government, given that you've navigated both the public and private sector?
See, संवाद में क्या है? Advocacy, I don't have a This word may not be that appropriate, but there has to be someone. थोड़ी मेरी सुनो, थोड़ी आपकी सुनो, मिलके बात करेंगे. So there has to be engagement, and this engagement cannot be on the decks. This engagement, this is a good forum. See, I go back today, educated on all the queries which has been raised, and I would like to thank all those people who have written here the queries here. So even if I have not answered to various people, maybe it is Manoj Sharma ji or Niharika ji or whatever, Charu, Smita and all these questions, if they send it to me, I will also get educated. My opinions will, and if my voice matters, I'm sure your voice will go there. So engagements have to be done, not only on the decks, but outside the decks.
Thank you so much, Viniji, for patiently answering these questions. And I agree with you that some of the questions are actually quite, mind-opening in the sense that they add this perspective to a conversation, and we all take away something from these questions that have been posed to us. We will be mindful about sharing all of these questions with you, and then we will get in touch with the respondents who've asked them and see if we can bring an answer to them as well. In the interest of time, and we only have a few minutes to close this session, so I hand it over back to Niharika. Thank you. Thank you all for asking these questions, and we will try and get back to you with the answers.
Thank you, Devi.
Thanks everyone. Thank you.
Now, as we approach to the end of our webinar, I would like to thank Sri Vinit Goenka ji for his time and sharing his thoughts and ideas. I would like to thank Anuraag. I would like to thank Roland, and of course the audience for their participation. Now, illegal betting and gambling are complex issues. Now, it requires some multifaceted approach, and today's discussion, I'm sure, has highlighted some critical areas for action. A recording of this webinar will be available soon, and we will share it via link. So if you have any further questions, or if you would like to more information, please feel free to reach out to us. Like Devuti mentioned, all these questions we will share with the CKS. So thank you once again for joining us today. Have a great evening.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Niharika and Tanisha, could you please leave the call so I can stop the recording?
I am waiting for Tanisha to leave the call. You stop the recording, na, any which ways.
Okay.